sake.
Right, guys, we all ready? Is everyone ready?
It's like this.
Welcome along to the Whisky Stories.
No, now you've done it.
Right, Dom.
Okay, Dom.
You're not even in shot.
Okay, Dom, clap us in.
Right, Dom. Clap.
Welcome along to the Whisky Stories podcast with myself, Graham Collier. We are back in the Athletic Arms, back in the diggers, but we are not in our usual place. We are back down in the whisky cellar.
The hatch.
We're down the hatch. We're through the hatch. We're through into the whisky cellar. Kev has once again trusted us to drink responsibly while surrounded by all of the whiskies that haven't made it onto that incredible back bar where they have one of the largest open whisky collections in Edinburgh. They are over 800 bottles, but it's great to be back here. Angus, how are you?
I'm fantastic. I'm brilliant. Really good.
Good to be back in the dungeon.
Delighted to be here. Second time here. I'm happier underground, I think.
The lighting's doing you wonders.
Exactly.
Ross, how are you?
I'm not delighted, fantastic or any of that. I'm doing good though.
You're doing all right.
Happy to be
You're
here.
doing all right. Well,
A bit of enthusiasm, Ross.
Back in my spiritual home.
whilst we're recording this, I just want to say congratulations to your dear father there, Mr. Bobby Barr.
What a man.
He's lost 5 stone.
Aye.
5 stone.
Aye.
In how long? 9 months? 6 months?
6 months.
6 months.
Shadow of his former self.
Yes,
Well, a
yes.
smaller shadow. He's doing a great job.
Brilliant.
So
Fair play.
when he hits his target weight, 7 stone lost. He's not invited me to this either. His target is to go and do a tasting with Cam, which I know includes a Bunab and 40.
Oh, well, there you
Which
go.
is just
There's an incentive.
Ridiculous, right?
Yeah.
And now we've got a guest who also knows all about Bunab.
Well, that's it. Well, we are going to welcome in for the second time on the podcast. We've got Hazel MacLeod. Hazy Drams. How are you, Hazel?
I'm good, thank you. I feel like a VIP down in the cellar, I'm not going to lie. I'm like, oh, it's like, change your location.
I'm glad you've taken it positively.
Thank you.
Well, you are, because I'm looking back here. You are episode number 3 of the Whisky Stories podcast. And do you know something?
Early days.
You were the first episode that Angus and I decided we don't need Ross anymore.
I'll say it's the first episode that I didn't turn up for. And so I got a panicked message from Hazel last night saying, please tell me you're coming tomorrow.
I was going to start taking it personal if you went, and I was like,
You were back the next week, I think, Ross.
It was really interesting.
It was,
wasn't it?
and to be honest, Angus and I have talked about this a lot when we look back over the journey, because this will be episode number 67, maybe 67. So we've been good going, good pace.
Yeah.
Lots of very good whiskey, lots of great guests. But what I would say is that. Yeah, I think we felt that night your episode genuinely was like it was the first episode. We didn't know what we were doing. We had Kevin for our first guest who gave us a great episode, and then the third episode we kind of with yourself we kind of felt we kind of know what we're doing here.
Well, it was a bit, because I mean, obviously when we started the podcast, we didn't know what we were going to do. We didn't know where it was going to go. We didn't know how long it was going to go for. And you were kind of our first real guest, because I mean, we knew Kev before, all 3 of us, and he was kind of just, it was a great episode, but it was bit like, this is our first actual somebody we don't know
from a brand, from a big brand,
from a brand,
about whiskey from a brand.
I remember coming in and being like, oh my gosh, what if I run out of chat? And then it was something ridiculous like 2 hours later, and I was like, oh, they should have told me to shut up.
It was actually there were some great whiskey stories in there. There was some great chat.
Oh, don't challenge me.
I'm sure there was. The only thing I can
see it in his face. He's going to ask us what the whiskey stories were.
No, I've got the 3
I can
drams.
remember asking you for swear words in Gaelic, I think.
Well, that was
Yeah.
it. Because you're not. I imagine you're probably not the only person
say.
who's been on the podcast who can speak Gaelic, but you are the first person, definitely. But we've never actually asked anybody else to try and speak it. So
I don't think anybody else speaks Gaelic as their first language.
I'll wear that as my wave that flag.
So that's your right. What I'm going to do first of all is I'm going to tell you. I'm going to try and work this out on my phone very quickly.
Because I remember the chat. I remember loving the chat about going back over to Harris and then saying, oh, who are you, what's your name? And you say MacLeod, and obviously that doesn't mean anything because everybody's
which one?
MacLeod.
Yeah. It's like you're queuing up in the camera thing. They're like, right, can you be a wee bit more specific with that?
But yeah, so obviously we've got you back on because there's been quite a big change that we'll dive into. But we had you on originally. Not listened to the episode. Go back and listen.
Well,
to
I will say that you are
currently
sorry. You are sitting right now as on the league table of episode downloads. You are number 3. You are our 3rd most listened to episode of the Whisky Stories podcast. So congratulations. Now, can you remember? If I was to ask you, can you remember what 3 drams were?
I've got no idea.
Oh, was Famous Grouse one of them?
Yes, absolutely.
Excellent. Strong start. Deanston 19.
Correct, with Muscat finish. Yes, well done.
And then it was probably either Glenfiddich or Balvenie.
Was it Glenfiddich?
Glenfiddich 15.
Correct, Mundo. Well
There
done.
you go.
Done.
Picked it like I
End of the
knows.
episode. Thanks, guys.
And at that time, very on brand.
Yeah, very
Yeah.
on brand.
Because at the time of recording, when we recorded that episode there with you, someone's just flushed the toilet. You were
Brand development manager.
yes, business development, brand development. What were you?
Yeah, it was business development executive or business development manager
yeah.
was what very fancy title names in the whiskey industry. But yeah, that's what I was at. That's what I was at Distell, and then what I was at William Grant's as well.
And you made the big move from selling life insurance
I did.
into the whiskey industry, which was, as you put it, a very, very good move, I suppose.
Yeah, just
Yeah.
a smidge more interesting, but
Aye. But now you're here, and you're not here representing William Grant & Son anymore. You're here representing Woven, who
Huge transfer in the whiskey business.
is a big.
This was massive.
And I loved your, if I remember correctly, I loved your breaking up video that you did
it
on
was really nice to be my
Instagram.
partner, the fear, when I was recording that in the flat as well. He was like, "Is she rehearsing for me?" And I was like, "Nah, it's just to announce my new job."
No. So yeah, it was great. But you work for Woven. We've had Peter from Woven on, who explained the whole concept of yummy whiskey, which
Yeah.
is what Woven's kind of sort of brand guidelines are, just creating yummy whiskey.
Yeah.
We've tried a lot. In fact, I think it was last Wednesday, Ross. I had a Woven.
Yep, he did. So it was an exclusive to Waitrose or something like that, was it not?
No, it was. What was it?
I don't know.
What Woven was it? It's a really. I've had it a few times before actually. A very, very nice. It was a very good, very yummy whiskey.
Yeah.
The Woven that Woven release with Berry just won awards. It was already sold out in Ballot. But Thrice, it was like a New Zealand malt whiskey in it and all the rest of it. It just won some awards that it put up for. It was interesting.
This is going to annoy me because I've had this whiskey plenty of times actually, because it is one of my favourite. There it is. It was the
Homemade.
Kaleidoscopic.
Oh, yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
very nice, very nice. There. So for those people who haven't listened to the Peter episode, definitely find out because it was a cracking episode with Pete there. But you are a whiskey specialist. You are the whiskey specialist for Woven.
I'm indeed. That's now my new official title. My glow up in the whiskey world.
Fantastic.
So yeah, Woven's whiskey specialist. So just looking after the commercial side of things. So. I report into Nick Ravenhall, who's one of the founders as well.
That's a great name as
he's
well.
The very strong name.
Yeah.
Very, very strong name.
Ravenhall.
He just moved into the Cotswolds.
Yeah, good.
And he's, like I was saying, he's one of the founders. He's also the managing director. So myself and himself look after commercials for
Cool.
the UK.
Yeah, so for people who maybe are listening who aren't 100% familiar with what or who Woven are, why don't you give us a little brief sort of breakdown of who Woven are and what they do?
I think probably the easiest and probably the best way to say it is Woven started in 2021, and it was three friends that wanted to bring back the art of blending. And two guys that absolutely loved Leith, loved everything that it stood for back in the day when it came to blending whiskey.
Yeah.
And they were like, hey, we want to make this a thing again, and we want to prove that blends, as Pete said, can be really yummy whiskey and can be really, really cool and fun to play with and stuff. So they got a wee bit of funding and stuff behind them, and now we've released our core range. We've moved from I don't know if you can see it on the camera, from our baby little 50cl bottles
Yes.
up to our semi-ECLs.
Pete talked about this because one of the things that we've talked about is the bottles are absolutely fantastic, but at the same time, as you can see here,
Very distinctive.
yeah, but often maybe mistaken for like hand soap.
Yeah, a lot of people. I was doing a distillers fair at the Scotch Whisky Experience, and a lot of people were like, "Oh, is this Aesop?" And I was like, "No, it's a whiskey fair. It's Woven." But a lot of people, you know how you usually get people who do, like, I'm just seeing it there, the Harris gin bottles as
Yeah.
lamps
Yeah.
and stuff. A lot of people do this as reed diffusers or
Yeah.
literally as hand soap holders.
Oh, it's lovely.
and
I mean,
cream and
but-
stuff. So
But I mean,
This is
obviously,
the first 70cl that I've seen.
yeah, and I think what we talked to Peter about it is obviously we've talked a lot about blends. We love blends on this podcast. We've talked about the blending process. We've talked to so many people who are involved in it.
Released our own blend.
We have released our own blend, exactly. And I think what a lot of people don't appreciate is how much you need, how much whiskey and how much liquid you'll probably need to create a blend.
yeah.
So then, if you're putting that out as a release, to be able to have the maximum amount of bottles that you can put out, as opposed to 50 cl at the time, is probably a good idea for a starting point.
I think Pete spoke about having like 7 casks, and he's like, okay, I need to get 3-4 releases out of this.
Exactly.
So that was difficult, wasn't it? Very unconventional for what you think about blending.
And what I would say is that what I love about Woven, which is something that I would probably go back 3 or 4 years, I would have not loved about them, is the fact that they're so keen to explore blending international whiskies together and different types of whiskies, and really focusing on the fact that, all right, the Scotch whisky industry might not allow you to, because am I right in saying, is there a Manuka wood?
That is our hemispheres.
Yes.
So Manuka smoked whiskey, and we pair that up with North British.
So yeah, there you go. And a Manuka, and is that a New Zealand?
New Zealand, yeah.
So that's a New Zealand whiskey. Is that matured in Manuka smoked wood?
Yeah.
Which would just never be allowed in Scotland through the SWA regulations.
True. Yeah, that's true.
So suddenly you're able to see what a North British would taste like if it was, and it is fantastic.
Yeah.
Now again, like I say, my perception of whiskey has completely changed over the last few years, but I at one point would have been like, nah, that can't be any good, because...
And also just the transparency to tell us that.
Yeah, exactly.
You don't get blends where they break down what's in the blend. It's not the done thing.
Nah.
Yeah.
And for them to just say, well, this is what it is, and this is everything that's in it. It's easier to understand, especially if you're trying to approach Woven as a kind of, I don't know, because you've got a core range as well, maybe slightly towards that premium end of blending anyway.
Yeah.
And you're like, okay, I'm going to approach it exactly how I'd approach perhaps a malt whiskey, and I can analyse what's in it, and I've had that as individual components. It's easier to work out. It's easier to nerd out about too if you're a whiskey person.
Yeah.
Oh, 100%.
So you worked for, you know, working for, it was Distell, William Grant and Sons, now Woven.
Yeah.
Now, working for a company like William Grant and Sons, we've had so many people who have worked, or we know a few people in the industry who have worked for them and also work with them, and they often talk about the freedom and the luxury that you get when you're working for a company like that.
Yeah.
So what's it like going from a company of that size and scale to then going to a company like Woven, who are reasonably smaller now and starting up?
I think I really appreciated my time at William Grant & Sons, because I learned so much to do with the commercial world and how all that happened, and they had so many systems in place for you to do your day-to-day job. So I think the biggest change that I found, you probably found it yourself when you were going from like Balmoral to Bevy as well.
We can't get another mention on the podcast. Okay. If anyone from that is listening, we are not mentioning it again today until we start getting some sponsorship
you
money.
You can bleep it out.
I'll just cut your bits out.
Yeah.
No, you're right. It's strange because you go from setting your own expectations, taking on more responsibility as part of a smaller team, than kind of maintaining the expectations and standards set before you were there.
Yeah.
Which I think is quite interesting.
I think as well, a lot of people are like, oh my gosh, you must be under a microscope because you're working with a way smaller brand and stuff, but I think within the whole team, there's only 10 of us in the team, so...
Which is also, everybody's quite new.
Yeah. 9 of us all started within, I think it was about a 6 to 8 week.
Really?
Isn't that mental?
Which was
That was just before
insane.
Pete, that was just after Pete was on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, the thing is as well, I mean, you know, you're going from a company where no one could have been there before 2021, from a company that, you know, it's the whatever generation of the family running it. It's a completely different, you know, setup.
Do you like the challenge of, you used to have 400 accounts, something like that?
I did, yeah.
400 accounts across Central Belt. So for people who don't understand, as BDM, it was your job to get the liquid into bars, get the bars pouring the liquid, promos, etc., to develop the brands, get it seen.
Well, we had a bit of a laugh
so
tonight.
many accounts who already would have your liquid.
Yeah.
Now you're going to people, introducing the liquid and creating those relationships from the start.
Yeah.
Do you enjoy that?
I find it so exciting when I go into a bar or go into a shop and they've never heard of Woven before, or they've never come across like blend like this before or anything like that, and then you come back in a couple of weeks and they've got it on shelf or they've got it on their menu and stuff. It's quite nice seeing it grow in both the on and off trade, which is something 9 out of 10 bars that you were going to in Scotland all had Glenfiddich 12 behind the bar, so it's quite, I find it really exciting and very rewarding as well.
Because you are clearly seeing the impact that you're having on the business there. Whereas, you were fantastic at your last job.
Thanks.
Most bars in Edinburgh have Glenfiddich and Balvenie.
Yeah.
Well, the interesting...
I guess the difference then is that when you were, you know, we remember talking last time and you're saying, I was going around the kind of East Lothian, going into golf clubs and trying to sell Glenfiddich to them. And
Yeah.
most places probably had Glenfiddich behind the bar already, but it was a case of, right, what else can you sell us apart from Glenfiddich 12?
Yeah.
You know, and it was your job to say...
Century Club and all these different things.
Well, there's also
Yeah.
introduce Balvenie, Hendrix, and all that kind of stuff as well, and Monkey Shoulder.
Telling Kev you give him branded glasses and he buys another case.
Exactly, yeah.
For Woven, it is an introduction of the brand. It is, right, what is Woven?
Which is well, what I'm enjoying is the change from going to that, like, essentially that catalogue of brands that you'd be going and selling that you guys were saying there, and now I'm going and you're solely focused on that one brand. That's because we want to grow that brand and we want to see it everywhere, so you can't help but naturally get behind it and you get passionate about it and you get really excited. And because we work so closely with Pete, Nick and Duncan as well, like the three founders of the company, of course you're going to feel it probably like, I feel it a lot more personally selling here than I did at William Grant's, because I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm making a difference to like the guys who are going to get to see it when they're all up in Scotland and stuff, whereas William Grant and his sons have been seeing it for quite a while. Yeah.
So I've got a couple of questions here. So number one, when you look back at your 3 drams that we talked about, you Glenfiddich 15, and one of the things that you spoke about, how that was like a real sort of, I think you called somebody out and said, stick that in a cocktail.
Yeah.
And you weren't 100% sure they put in a cocktail, and it was at that point you were saying the challenge for you was trying to go to these bars and saying, you know, all right, maybe you've got the 12 and maybe you've got a few other things, but do you make whiskey cocktails? And a lot of people might say, we don't bother whiskey cocktails. And you'd say, try making a cocktail out of that Glenfiddich 15. You explained it to them, and you taste it like, oh, thank God, that was good. So that was a challenge for you. So why would somebody buy Glenfiddich off of you directly when they could just go out to any other wholesaler and buy it? What was the difference between Kev buying it from you direct versus buying it from just a wholesaler?
Poor Kev was probably like, I will buy this off you if you just shut up and get out of the bar. And sort of chewing my ear off. So I was like, meh, like, this is why you should buy it. But I think it's all, what I definitely find up in Scotland is it's all definitely a relationship building exercise, whereas in London, it's very much, what's the best price you can get, what's the best deal you can get. Whereas up here, like, my time in Grants was when I was working with the on-trade and I had just moved to Edinburgh and I didn't know anyone, and that's how I made my pals in Edinburgh, and that's how I got so settled into the city as well, and like it's how I met Stevie, my fiance, as well. So it's amazing how close the trade is, and when you're in it, it's just, you make friends for life. And I think a lot of people find it really cliche and they're like, oh, you're such a salesperson, like you're making your customers your friends. I'm like, but it's not like that. It's, you're going in, and if you're showing that you're willing to go in and see these people and support them over and over again, of course you're going to buy into that naturally, as opposed to someone that turns up once in a blue moon.
The whiskey industry's like that, isn't it?
Well, I mean, the whiskey industry,
yeah.
I always go back, like, from a farming background and stuff, and I think it was my grandfather always just used to say, he said, people buy for people.
Yeah.
Right? And I think when you look at these traditional industries and stuff like that, like, there's still quite a few industries that survive on deals being done over a personal handshake.
Yeah.
And it could be a case of, fine, well, right, I'm going to come down and see Kev, and Kev knows, right, I've got Hazel coming in, and it might be over a cheese and ham toasty that they sell at a very reasonable price.
Very delicious as well.
Absolutely. But at the same time, I blare that, right, here's what I'm after, I need X amount of that, X amount of that, X amount of that, right, shake your hand, there's it.
Yeah.
And I think as well, like Ross I think it was Ross or somebody alluded to, like, you can chuck in some glassware, some table mats, you can put a bit of stuff like that in there as well. Now, on the flip side of that then, what's the, not challenge, but what is the big sale for Woven when you're now walking into these places? Because beforehand you've walked into a bar and you've got Glenfiddich, Balvenie, Monkey Shoulder, Grant's, Hendrix Gin behind you. Now you're walking in going, I don't have these trusted brands that you all know.
Yeah.
So how do you sell the Woven brand, and how do you sell the products to them?
I think it's just those that are wanting something different and wanting local stuff done by local people. And what I found is, initially after COVID, when you were selling, it was, what's the best price that you can get? How can you support us? Whereas over the last year to 18 months, it's been a lot of, okay, we're focusing more on sustainability and buying closer to home and sourcing our whiskies closer to home and stuff as well. And then bars just want to be different from other bars. They're not wanting to stock what so-and-so has next door, and they're wanting their own sort of different points in there as well. So that's where Woven kind of goes hand in hand with a lot of these customers as well. Same with, I've now started looking after indie off-trade, so like shops like Cork and Cask and that across Edinburgh. And what I'm finding, like with those kind of customers, well, it's the same. It's something that's different, and that they can naturally sell to their customers as well. Something
Yeah.
that, but also something that will speak to itself. Like you'll get to try some of that.
It's a conversation
Yeah.
whiskey, and that's what people love. And you're right. It essentially comes to different venues. Cam has bought every whiskey that Hazel's represented previously. Woven probably doesn't work for the clientele that he's got at the moment. Jane Ross at Mother Superior, Shan Buchan at Uno Mas. You go to their back bars, covering Woven, supporting Leaf, supporting local bottlers, supporting local companies. Like those bars have the clientele that are coming in looking for something they've not had before.
Yeah.
Look at bartenders coming in going, what have I not had? Have you got anything interested in? Well, have you heard of Woven? I remember
But
when
then does
Woven
that,
came out.
but then does that limit you a little bit in the sense that you talked about over having 400 accounts that you're managing for William Grant Sons.
Yeah.
Now a lot of those will just be we have your down the line whiskey drinker,
Yeah.
Green Ball, Glenfiddich 12,
Yeah.
Balvenie 12, maybe
Card,
all
whatever you want.
the
Yeah.
kind of stuff like that, right up there. That's all we want in our gantry. If I stick one of those bottles up there, folk are, now it might be you can work that two ways, I suppose, because
Yeah.
people might go, "What the hell's that?" Try it and see, and
Yeah.
that's your sort of thing. So what can you do? Because it'd be very interesting to hear, like from your point of view, what can someone who's in your position do to a bar to encourage them to buy that? So you're giving them this. You've given us a sell right now, local whiskey source, made locally. It's part of Leith. We've got the story.
Yeah.
What's the business reason that someone might go, right, okay, give me a couple of bottles of that and I'll see about taking a case later on?
I think Ross kind of touched on it earlier, like there's no animosity behind it. If you want to know what whiskies are being used in Woven, granted we can't name absolutely all of them
Yeah.
due to GDPR and whatnot, but there's QR codes on the backs of the bottles, and if you scan that, we'll get as close as possible to telling you what whiskies are in there.
Genius.
So percentage of, lowland whiskies, but then we might be using little bits of Glen Grant and
Yeah.
stuff as well, and that will all be broken down at the back. So it's not, it's blended, but we don't know what with. So like, why are we going to spend our money on that when we don't know what whiskies are in it? Like, we're trying to be as open and approachable as possible.
And it's also inclusivity.
Yeah.
Adding QR codes. Whiskey has to modernise.
Oh, 100%,
Yeah.
I know that immediately we're going to think of people who drink blended whiskey maybe aren't familiar with using QR codes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was a market. That is still a market. It's massively important to Scotch whisky. But whiskey's moving, whiskey's modernising, and Woven's a great example of making it more inclusive. You don't have to be a whiskey drinker to enjoy Woven. Not really. The new product you put out there, you can tell us what it is now.
Well, wait,
I'm not going to empty glass yet.
We're going to come back to that because there's a couple more. But you're right, Ross. But
But you can bring thought-provoking products out
yeah.
that can take a traditional drinking market into a new brand.
But how do you attract? Like you see a lot, so you come to Diggers and you've got the whiskey chalkboards, and you go to other bars and stuff like that, and they'll say we've got malt of the month or we've got this going on. Is that a sell point that you can say, look, this is what the bottle would cost you X amount of, if you sell that as your malt of the month for 1 month, go through a couple of bottles of that at £3.50, £4 a dram, you're still going to make a profit on it. But what you're also going to do is you're going to familiarise your drinkers with that, because there will be people that maybe sit in the pub go, that's only £3 or £4, so I might as well have a wee bang on that because it's cheap. Try it. That was lovely, and then they're familiar with the flavour from that point.
It's probably quite similar as well to what I was saying about Glenfiddich 15 on the last episode I was on. It's about presenting it in a way that folk are going to want to drink it.
Yeah.
So for those that are wanting it as malt of the month, of course we want to support people that want to put that on their chalkboard, because then if that sells and that's going to get more people trying it, that's a huge win for us.
Yeah.
But we've just rolled out this massive incentive across select on-trade bars. So I think it's about 10 bars across Central Belt that are taking part, and we're all about trying to bring back the highball.
Yeah.
And I know you'll be thinking, Hazel, Johnny Walker and stuff have tried to do that, and a lot of them are owning that space, but we're trying to work with these bars because when I say whiskey highball, what do you guys think of?
Angus is back from Japan.
Home of the highball.
So
This links in so lovely to the story that I'm telling.
So yeah, I mean, when I think of a highball, I think of a nice glass, lots of ice, soda, whiskey, lovely, really refreshing.
A day drink, we were saying, there was a culture there. Please drink responsibly.
No, I mean,
but it's something you can have that you don't have to be a hardcore spirit drinker for.
Of course,
Yeah.
of course. I mean, something you can order and have it with your meal. Very nice.
Now we had because a whiskey highball. We had table whiskey highball when we were at Portleaf.
Yeah.
Distillery. As
Love it.
I'm representing Portleaf
You are,
Distillery
yeah, you got
with my T-shirt
got
that
your
I gave it.
merchandise on, yeah.
But that was a whiskey and soda That was a table whiskey and soda
Yeah.
instead of a whiskey. And I'm a big fan recently of whiskey gingers.
I love
Yeah.
whiskey
True,
ginger.
yeah.
Aye, lots of ice,
all
bit of lime.
highballs.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So you're looking at Woven are sort of saying this is because we talked about this last week's episode where we were talking about, you know, there are brands that are bringing out whiskey for mixing.
And
Yeah.
Well, this is it. I mean,
this
to
is a
put-
competition. Sorry, just
Yeah.
to link these together. This competition that you've got
Yes.
between these 10 bars.
So-
Because the prize is unbelievable.
It's
Angus is
absolutely
about to open up a
insane.
bar when you tell him this.
So we are teaming
Watch
up
the
with
space.
these bars across Central Belt, and they can use any woven from our core range, so whether that's super blend, homemade, or hemispheres, and we're asking them to create their own highball and be as weird and as wacky as possible. It doesn't, just have to be ginger ale or soda, or they can use whatever they want, make their own syrups and stuff. We're kind of encouraging them to really think outside the box about what they think is going to sell best and suit their space the best. We're supporting them with, we're getting like bespoke t-shirts made, where
cool.
like the W here is made into a highball glass. I'd love to be inside Duncan's mind for one day because he's one of the most creative people that I've ever come across in my life. We're supporting with glassware and ice spears, but there's a prize, and there's two ways that you can win this prize. So there's volume, so whoever sells the most woven highballs, and there's also experience, whoever's providing the best experience to the consumer, like whoever's really bringing someone on board on that highball journey.
Telling the story.
When did this competition start?
It started on Monday,
Can we enter?
so
You don't have a
3rd
bar?
of March.
We can enter. Can we
How,
not
how,
enter?
how are you going to sell the most highballs?
Well, when does the competition end?
Ends on the 28th of May.
Right, so we'll have episodes. So how many episodes do you think we can get in between now and the 28th of May?
This is also
And
before I've even said the prize, but yeah.
But every single episode between now and the 28th of May,
You're going to
we
make
have
somebody a
we,
highball,
We have
give
to
them an experience.
create a highball and try and get. And then what we can do is we can go out imagine our weekend dram roll call, right? And we've
Sorry,
got
Hazel.
everybody. We should be sponsored. You should be sponsored us with it.
M&S, here we go.
No, because imagine if on our weekend dram roll call, right, we get everybody else to try and create a woven whiskey highball. Now everyone has to buy a bottle of woven whiskey to make that
So you're
highball.
going for the volume of the experience.
We'll go for both.
We've
got Angus and you for the volume and me for the
closed.
experience.
why don't you listen to the prize?
Give us a prize. Give us a prize.
So whoever wins the most volume and whoever wins the most experience, they win 2 tickets for 2 people from their bar to go to Japan.
Oh, I've just been.
Yeah, you're not interested anymore.
Hi, well, Ross,
yeah.
Again?
It's a long flight.
Ladies and gentlemen, I want to put it out here right now. The Whiskey Stories podcast have just officially entered the highball competition. Well, maybe
So
not
sorry,
officially.
Team Woven and the legal team.
Because we are not a bar or a non-trade.
Well, look,
But I
we'll
mean, I
try
will
it.
say that the way the highball culture is in Japan. I mean, if you go to a restaurant, the whiskey list is actually a highball list, and if you want the whiskey, you have to ask for it. No, I'd like that neat, not as a highball.
Really?
That's
Isn't
the
that
level it's
interesting?
at. Yeah.
Well,
Some places.
I mean, as I
But what an
said,
amazing for a new company.
That's a
new,
great- I mean,
a new
yeah.
company in whiskey to say, do you know what? For the on-trade, because listen, we have championed bar owners, bar managers, bartenders, because they often make it into whiskey in the industry in all different ways. But also, as an industry, people look at hospitality. A lot of people look at hospitality and look down at hospitality.
Oh,
Well, you can
100%.
sit in your Monday to Friday 9 to 5 behind your computer
Yeah.
and be jealous because a bartender in Glasgow or Edinburgh is going to go to Japan because they made class highballs.
no, and that's it. And I think from a commercial point of view, and making a splash on these things is you have to think outside the box a little bit. Like you've
100%.
already just talked about, like being in that. Where was it you said you'd be in so-and-so's brain for mine
Oh,
for
in Duncan's brain.
Duncan. So
Yeah.
Duncan's the
One of the blender,
So
isn't he?
he's one of the founders and he's the marketing director.
so yeah. So like that's what's needed
Sublime,
because
yeah.
you suddenly look at marketing. Marketing has moved so far with whiskey and what market you're trying to approach.
Yeah.
And every single brand will be different because every single brand will have its particular type. I mean, Glen Tucker's just aim for Chuck Kerr. And that's it. But there will be so many. Who do we? If you're this particular company or brand, who are you aiming for? But you've had to pick your demographic. You've had to pick that, but also then pick what whiskey suits that.
Yeah.
But to come up with
Yeah.
other commercial sides. I mean, if you're on the commercial side of the whiskies,
Yeah.
it's not something we often get a lot of chat from. So how does it work? What are the commercials? Is it selling as much whiskey as possible, or is it getting your brand as recognised as possible?
Kind of a bit of both obviously for the volume price, you're trying to sell as much woven as possible, and we all know it's easy for someone to turn around and be like, well, I sold a bajillion bottles, so of course I'm going to Japan. So it's all the logistics of working not only closely with the bar but with their route to market, their wholesale partners, to make sure that everything's legit, and that we're supporting them for providing the bars with all the stock as well. So making sure that all of that is in place, and that a lot of thought went into this incentive and making sure that it was commercially, it was going to work out, and it wasn't just throwing cash for the sake of it.
Yeah, of course.
But it's one of those, you're bringing the bartender along on this journey with you. And I can't remember, it was some mad statistic, like 85-90% of what you try in the on-trade is what you'll eventually start buying in the off-trade. So landing this correctly, so when folk go out to a bar and be like, that's really, really yummy, we need to buy this so we can then have it at home.
Well, that was going to be my next question, is what's the demographic that you're aiming for here? Because if you're working with the trade, what would you prefer, or what is the biggest revenue generator? Is it going to bars and getting people like us drinking over the bar, or is it getting the guys that can go to the shops and buy a bottle? So what would be the best? What in your mind? What's your ideal target? Is it the guy that's going to shop, the person going to shop to buy a bottle, or is it the person going to the pub to buy a dram?
I think my view will come across biased because I'm now 70% off-trade sales, as opposed to at my last job when I was 100% on-trade sales. Yeah. But I think it's really important that any brand nails what they're doing in bars and restaurants. So we want to appeal to whether you've never had whiskey before in your life, or if you're a whiskey connoisseur but you're looking for something a little bit different. Like, we don't want to shut anyone off. But I think with this highball incentive, we're going to bring in a new market to Woven, which is really exciting. And people who think, oh, I don't like whiskey's not for me, okay, maybe I'll give this a shot, like, so-and-so had this on as a special. Oh, actually, I'm really enjoying that, I want to go to the shop and try and recreate that. So
I also feel where Woven is just now massively expanding, but still a new brand. Woven is a brand that needs explained. And that's only a benefit to it. We had Corey Reynolds on the podcast ages ago, not quoted him in ages, and he said the best brand ambassador you could possibly have is a motivated bartender.
Just about to come out onto that.
Genuinely.
We are so in sync.
Aren't we good? Aren't we good?
So good.
It's like you guys have done this before.
Well, but genuinely.
We weren't like this in the third episode,
If you get these 10 bars and you get the people behind the bar generally believing in the product, even after the competition, they're going to be telling people, have you had this before? This is different. And see that 30-second chat they have with the customer? That's the value in that. They're all employees without being employees.
Well, that's it.
100%.
And that's, they will sell bottles in the shop in the long term. I'm sure it'll be a massive success. But that's why I'm certainly always biased to, even if you're only in, got another sound coming in there. Even if you were even if you're only in 5 bars, if those 5 bars are talking about your product every single day, it's better than being in 50 bars where it sits on the shelf. And
the thing is, as well, is one of the big things that people buy for people, as we said earlier on, but also the fact is you've got to look after the people that are selling your product for 100%. You. So it's, why would there's a bartender someplace who, out of these 10 bars, who's got someone in front of them going, I fancy something a bit different tonight, I'm not too sure. Now they've got a choice. Now they could go, oh well, what about that? Or they can go, hang on a minute here, if I sell a cocktail, if I sell a highball with Woven, something, I was experimenting with this afternoon, why don't you try this? Never heard of it, what is it? And suddenly they're thinking that might get me a trip to Japan there, because the reason I'm selling them that instead is because I want to go to Japan. And
like Ross would say as well, we're hoping this is something that even after Japan's been and gone and the winners have gone on their trip, they're still talking about it, because they're like, oh, the support we got during that was mega. Like, there's all sorts of point of sale that we're giving them as well. So we've also got these what I call the clicker clackers, very technical term.
Clicker clackers.
It's a counter that we link up to their EPOS system. So when they sell a highball, they hit a button and then it starts to count it. So all the bars that are competing, technically someone could go into other bars and be like, right, so and so have got 150 and we're only at 120.
Oh, so they can actually see. So you're actually very, very clever. There's a lot of thought in that. That's now.
What do you call that point of? What did you just call that?
EPOS.
EPOS, like their till.
Electric point of sale.
No. But, okay, so literally was the point of sale in the system, right? Okay, point of sale. That's how we want to market it.
Obviously.
I thought it was. I thought it was a really smart marketing term. I thought it was like.
No, I'm so sorry.
No.
I mean, we talked a lot about selling the on-trade, but I mean, you mentioned that a lot of your business now is selling to retail.
Yeah.
And one of the things I'd noticed about Woven since Woven had been on, this is going to be very Edinburgh biased, but I walked into a Margiotta and not known for a big selection of whiskey.
I don't know what that is.
It's a convenience store. Okay.
It's a posh corner shop in Edinburgh.
Really?
It's class.
Very posh.
They do really good crisps in there.
Very good crisps.
They only do the kettle
Yeah.
beat.
Is this above M&S?
No.
Well,
It's different.
The Edinburgh's M&S,
Okay.
I'd say, yeah.
Okay, sorry.
It's very nice.
Sorry for posh shaming you.
There's one in Aberlady.
Is it linked to Waitrose somehow?
yes.
Just
They had a
some-
deal with Waitrose.
Yeah.
They sell Waitrose
that makes
products
sense why
in
they'll
it.
have
But
Woven.
if you go in, this is maybe it then, because if you go in, they usually have a non-age statement Glenmorangie, a non-age statement Glenmurray, and then I've noticed they suddenly have a Woven.
Yeah.
And I've been like, well, that's very
An honest
interesting.
statement Woven.
Three whiskies, very well-known brand, Woven. And it's new, and I've just, because I was very interested in that, it's like, oh, Woven have got into Margiotta, that's very interesting.
I think
And
the thing is as well, like going into these accounts, so where I built up all my relationships in the on-trade, I'm now effectively having to do that in the off-trade, which
Yeah.
in itself is...
So for people listening, on-trade being a bar.
yeah.
Or
the
nightclub,
bars,
anywhere where you can turn up
Yeah.
and buy a drink. But off-trade being
shops.
shops, right?
Yeah.
Meeting
retail.
executives from Tesco's, etc.
yeah. Is this
I'm not
where,
quite at that level yet.
I was going to say, is this where you have your like...
Tesco would not like my chat.
Is this where you have your kind of like apprentice moment and you're meeting the managing director? You know when you see the program The Apprentice and they go in and it's like they have to sell their product to Asda or something and it's like you're sitting at a kind of table with three men at the other side of the room behind the table. And
Claude on The Apprentice is what I imagine those supermarket buyers to be like.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And I would just be the poor apprentice person trying to make it
Doing
through,
your
being like,
pitch.
oh, do you don't like my jokes? That's so weird. Every little helps.
I bet you do really well at that, to be honest.
You do all right.
Oh, you'll
Speak
do
Gaelic,
well.
does that help? No.
Surely, I work in whiskey, I speak Gaelic. You'll buy it. Good
Yeah.
question.
But so you're working with, you're now going, and this is what's very interesting is, like what Ross had mentioned about what Cody had said about your bartenders or some of your best brand ambassadors, shop assistants and people that are stacking shelves and people that are working in shops, they're not doing that.
Yeah.
So that's literally down to how do you grab the attention of the person that's walking past or having a look at that and going,
Yeah.
right, that's what I want, instead of I've never seen that before.
And it seems like a really obvious thing. Like you'll go into these whiskey shops and you'll have. I remember I used to always take it so for granted when I'd walk in and you get someone offering you samples and I'd be like, right, no thanks, I'm okay just now, thank you. And now I am that person offering samples and I realise what a dick I was to people. Shooing away their jams, not even
away.
thinking anything of it and being like, no, like, I'm in here for something, I don't have time for chat with us. Now I'm like, please sir, please ma'am, please, please have my jam and buy it.
So you'll go
But-
to like the Inverness whiskey shop for a day and like pour samples for customers kind of thing.
Exactly, and it's just getting that chat
Supports
and getting
the shop and they sell it.
exactly, like before Christmas I was up in Inverurie and I was doing sampling up there, and obviously pre-Christmas everyone in getting their Christmas jams and stuff, and it was just having a flask of Woven
Christmas
hot
rush in
toddies.
Inverurie.
Wow.
I know, and what a scene it was. It was just me
You
pouring.
speak Gaelic?
Yes,
Sorry.
Doric, I don't have that, sorry. But I was just pouring these hot toddies for them, and it just naturally got people chatting about Woven and what was in it, and okay, well, we're in the heart of Speyside, so why are we going to buy blends? I'm like, what an excellent challenge, thank you so much. And then just getting to sell to them, and then I've been in contact with the guys up at like Inverness Whiskey Shop and stuff as well, so it's just how we can appeal to different
Amazing.
people everywhere.
I did that once. I did that for Glenfiddich at Drinkmonger on Bruntsfield in Edinburgh.
Did you? You poured some
I
samples.
stood there for 3.5 hours.
I turned up.
Angus and his current wife
Yeah, the
came
current
along.
wife. And the,
But it was fascinating because it was a real mix. It was standing there.
Sorry I didn't make it for that.
No. And to be honest, I kept it quiet because I didn't really know what I was doing. But my line was, here, have another. It's not my whiskey.
Well, you're not employed by them anymore, so you can say that, I guess.
was basically a case of, I thought, hey, yeah, do you know what? And, what's your measures there, Graham? I said, no, it's Friday night, Drinkmonger. But it was fascinating, the breakdown of people coming in
Yeah.
and going. Some people, because some of these shops will make, if they've got a mailing list or they've got, and there was people that were coming along. In fact, the man who sat closest to you, Angus,
Yes.
at the last Indie Butler Spotlight. He's on camera. He had a lovely beard.
Yes.
He looked a bit like Mark Thompson, if I'm being perfectly honest.
Yes, he did, yeah.
He came in and he was explaining that we shop here regularly. We know they'd mentioned that this was happening, so we just thought we'd come in because we'd never heard of Glenfiddich before, had to chat. And other people would come in because of the mailing list. Then there was just passers-by.
Yeah.
Friday evening, do you want a dram? Okay, I'll try a dram. Do you like whiskey? Not really, but I'll try this. And it was very interesting to see. And then, of course, the challenge was, if they said, well, that was actually quite nice, you're going, well, it's for sale right now over there, and it's only X amount per a bottle and stuff like that. So it was quite an interesting experience to be able to do that. And also just like...
But it's very different going in bars, for sure, for you to be like,
Yeah.
so different.
Well, it is, but then at the same time, it's like you're cutting out, it's trying to find that, like, how are people going to try it?
Yeah. I feel like as well, as soon as you're in a shop, if you can grab someone's attention for just that couple of seconds, and then you realise if they want a chat or they don't, and then you can just bring them right into...
See, even the fact that you were doing hot toddies, I feel like the role of the sample giver in shops has not changed in 30 years. You stand behind the barrel, you say, can I interest you in one of our ex-distilleries? See, even the fact that you're pouring cocktails, that shows that Woven are thinking...
Also, because it was Christmas, of course I had a tub of quality streets there as well.
Yeah.
Smart.
Bring them all in.
Smart.
Again, aye.
Come for the quality sheet, stay for the drams.
Exactly.
You can have a toffee penny if you talk to me. Thank you.
That's very well with homemade.
Now, one thing I will say is a bar that would be very, very good in is Craig Darling's bar from
I miss
the
that.
Facebook group. I have to say,
Our Trinent Whisky Ambassador.
we've
Not Haddington, I do apologise.
Brand
we've done
ambassador.
something here, guys, because I still find it bizarre that people message us, people follow us, it's fantastic. Thank
That's
you so much to
incredible.
everybody that do that.
Yeah.
But we've managed to actually get people to spend a lot of time in editing skills and with references of their bars in the home. And people are videoing them, and
What a bar it is.
what about and
It's
the building
incredible.
of it is incredible. See if you have family members, like he's got friends and family that are plasterers, joiners, electricians and all that. To be able to, I mean, when you see the video of them, you have to see this, Hazel. If you go into our Facebook group, the Whisky Stories Facebook group, it's a private group. It's great to get in.
Started with Scott, our Tennessee delegate, or whatever.
Memphis is
Memphis.
our American brand ambassador, and then Bob Cutting, his Whiskey Shed,
Right.
and then we had and now Craig Darling he's spent a
Just their
20-minute
whole
video.
bars.
What I love about it is these are laced with tiny little Whiskey Stories
when he's sitting at the
And
start.
the opening, and he opened the door. I don't want to ruin it, but he's sitting with his son. He said, "No." I said, "Swanky tasting notes."
And his son doing the clap at end. What
clap it.
I love is the variations of Angus that we're seeing.
Yeah.
Angus clapping in from a wee boy to Scott doing it himself.
Well, actually, I mean, I don't even want to mention why we do a clap us in, but really, it was literally just it makes it easier for me to edit the audio with the video.
It's the same reason in a film you have a clapping board.
Yeah, exactly. That's it. But I just
it's
decided
so
one
you-
week to leave it in and not take it. I just say Angus clap us in, and this was before we had these mics. It was literally I'd have to record the audio and video the footage, and then I'd have to try and match the audio with the footage in the editing tool. Somebody then explained to me after a year, by the way, you could do that much easier. But by that point, Angus was clapping us in, so we just kept it. So the clap, I always knew when I saw the spike on the audio. That's where Angus has clapped. I'd find where Angus is clapping on the video and just match the two of them up and just wait. And that was great. See when the camera used to cut out when it was overheating, disaster. Because then I'd have to realign it all and things like that. But
You're a saint.
it's great. No, but
The Editing Stories podcast.
if you haven't watched any of these videos, or you have heard us mentioning about the Whisky Stories Facebook group, get on it. Weekend Dram Roll Call. I mean, what a busy Weekend Dram Roll Call it's been, and also like your dad sharing with us that he
I've got
lost all that
£500
weight.
to play with.
I know. I mean, we've got 500.
Oh, really?
Whiskey Stories
Did he say that?
podcast.
Did he say that?
Think about it. Right, basically.
He wants 8 bottles.
Yeah.
I bought that 30-year-old blended grain for him. He's giving me 500 quid. I'll maybe go a wee bit over depending where we are. But we've got some travels coming up as well.
Yeah.
You need to keep. We're going to be going all over the place with the pod, and so maybe we'll pick up some bottles on our travels for him as
absolutely.
well.
Yeah. So what did you say? 8 bottles for 500 quid. So that's a £62.50.
And I've already brought it up because I got a 50 quid
maths.
bottle to start.
Yeah.
So there you go.
He's definitely-
One's
got to
on
be
the
a-
calculator last night. And
One's got to be a Tamdu.
One's got to be a Tamdu. He said 2 for me and MacLeod. He's trying to sweeten them up because he thinks
He wants a free trip to Rosebank.
Isn't he typical? You think he was say 5? He's just an Ayrshire man. That's it. That's the Stevenson in him, I guess. But it's it'll be interesting because he's always had a good collection of whiskey
Yeah.
at home. And then he went on this diet, which meant he couldn't drink any beer or any wine.
Yeah.
So he had some drams, and his whiskey collection's taken a battering.
Yeah.
Yeah, he won't mind me. He won't
Well,
mind.
except for the bottles he leaves on the bus.
Except for the bottle he leaves on the bus. He might mind me saying this, but I'll just go see if my dad messages me after 9 o'clock at night now. It's not an emergency. He's not getting a reply because he's talking pish. He's full of drams. He's talking pish. But he needs to build his collection back, a wee home collection. And my idea is to buy him stuff that he wouldn't buy himself.
Yeah.
Because he's just
That's what
Tamdu 18, Balblair 15, slight fixation in sherry. I think
Yeah.
Simon Smith once commented on one of his posts. I went home, had a tasting. There was about 10 drams on the sideboard, 8 of them sherry matured.
Yeah.
Simon says, a little bit of a fixation, a little bit of triangle on here, but I like
What's
that.
nice is what's nice is he's opened up to the whiskey. So actually,
He was the original sherry tart before you, I guess.
exactly. Well, 150 people who are on the Whiskey Stories Facebook group, are getting our opportunity to play their part in what your dad might be influenced in, or what
Absolutely.
you might be influenced by your dad. And also, like, we've just built a great community. But as I was saying, like Craig Darling's bar, these people. So what they're doing is they're sending us videos of their own home bar, their back bar, their collections. We've had Scott Moore over in Memphis sending us his. Bob cutting down in, he's down Oxford area, isn't he? Originally from Yorkshire area.
Yeah, somewhere near Northampton. I think.
Yeah, so I've had that, and then we've had
Craig
Darling
Darling,
from
I did
Trent.
notice there was something missing from his bar.
Oh.
No Whiskey Stories blend. And that's okay, Craig.
Well-
That's okay. I was going to comment it. I think there is still a couple bottles available.
Do you know what I loved? I love when he had the piano and he played the famous Grouse tune, and then it was like Whiskey Hatch, and then in the back. It's
I thought that was brilliant.
Watch it. Honestly, these videos they're brilliant. And as I say, I cannot get over the fact that people
This wee community.
are listening to us, talking
Just
about us,
taking
and
the time
And,
to.
and see if you're listening and you
something
go,
like that.
okay, that sounds a bit. It is the hardcores on the Whiskey Facebook group.
Aye.
Get involved, even if you've been listening
But
for
that sounds
however
like so much fun watching those videos.
It's brilliant.
And
Just-
we had a message now. I got a person called Lance Morgan,
yes.
Yes.
right? I hope I pronounced that correct. Launce, Lance.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
They sent us a friend. They sent us friend requests. Lance, their screen picture, fantastic. It's their dog wearing a paper hat.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right, Lance messaged me today as we're recording. Graham, my wife and I are Whiskey Podcast Stories fans, and we are visiting Edinburgh the 27th to the 31st of March. Will the podcast be live anywhere that we could visit? Many thanks.
Amazing.
Now, Lance,
All of a sudden, yes, it will.
What I can tell you and your current wife is we will be doing our exclusive Pintail Indie Bottler Spotlight in March on Thursday the 27th of March.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll
Aye.
double check. I think you're
As
right.
this podcast goes out, I'm hopeful that the venue has been agreed.
So this is going to come out on the 13th.
It's at Simon
Yeah,
Smith's new
27th,
place down
yeah.
in Salamander Street
I've
in
not
Leith.
even heard of this. Neither of you have. Clearly, heard this either. New account.
The name-
New Woven Stockist.
So he's opening up a new bar.
He is opening up a new bar.
Friend of the pod.
And we will be this Indie Bottler Spotlight. I really, because I cannot be bothered going back and editing this.
I really hope it's confirmed.
This is, but he said to me yesterday, I can assure you we are 98% sure that the bar will be ready. However, it will not be open by the time we do our Indie Bottler Spotlight, which effectively means
We are launching the bar.
we are christening
We're
Simon
the pre-show.
Smith, Whiskey and Cynicism,
What's
Mr.
the
Whiskey
name of the bar?
Consultant.
Going to be? Do we know?
The bull, not the bullfrog, it's the
We don't know.
the
We don't-
bullfinch.
So the Bullfinch exists, a pub. It used to be called the Pond on
The Pond.
Salamander Street.
The Bullfinch.
I know exactly where it is. Yeah,
Yeah,
been
so
there
that's
before.
where our
Edinburgh
Indie Bottler
Salamander.
Spotlight is.
I've won a pub quiz in the Bullfinch.
Oh, now you're
Yeah.
talking head of pub
Now,
quizzes.
Simon,
80
apologies to Simon
80
if
quid.
I've gone.
That's 80 quid, you want
They're about 3 teams.
Apologies to Simon if I've
Myself
gone earlier
and the
than
cat
that.
wife.
He's
Yeah.
unsure whether it's going to be called the Finch
Okay.
or the Bullfinch.
Okay.
I would suggest because it was called the Bullfinch, but before that it was called the Pond. I would
Yeah.
say revert back to the previous.
I would just
name,
call it
'cause
Whiskey
was
and
the Pond
Simpson.
for a year.
Yeah.
Well, anyway.
I'd call
But
Simon
anyway.
Smith, Whisky Simpson, Whisky Consultant. Can you imagine? Now, Simon Smith has been the man who's invited us and given us a fantastic night at the Lost Close. He's been he's had a pop-up in there. So this is him getting his own bar. And it's going to be really, really exciting because we will be the first people to actually christen and open that for our Indie Bottler Spotlight.
We'd love to have as many listeners there as possible.
Well, Lawrence, get you and your current wife down there because...
And the dog with the paper hat.
I would, and the dog. Bring the dog
Yeah.
in the dog.
With paper
We
hat.
don't know if the pub is dog friendly yet, but it's not open.
No,
yet.
but well, that's it. Who cares? But,
stand outside with
bottom
it,
line
it's
is,
fine.
what a night we're going to have in there because
That's
there's going to be
fantastic.
some great drams from Pintail, which are really exciting. Now, the work that Pintail do with their cask management, their casting. So Keith Bonington. He'll be coming down with Simon Smith
Brilliant.
to deliver that Indie Bottler Spotlight. So tickets will be available by the time you're listening to this. If there are any left, you can find them. Go through our link tree in the link through our Instagram account and stuff like that, and you'll find it on our Facebook group. But I just realised as well, guys,
We haven't said our drams.
so I've literally, like Ross, we are smashing this out the back.
Oh.
What are we
Is it
drinking?
person-
Do you know what I thought was good? I actually quite like that we're mentioning our drams at this point because I've had a taste of them.
Yes, well, there we go.
And I'm
Well,
going to
it's
start.
what have I already drunk?
My dram here is a pintail.
Yeah, there we go.
There we go.
Didn't mean that.
What are you getting? What
It's
you
a
got?
pintail Othrusk.
Oh, thrust.
I like Othrusk. Ford of the Red Stream in
Tell me
Gaelic,
about-
as far as
tell
I'm
me a bit
aware.
about that, because
Optimistic.
What I
Gaelic.
have to say is, right, how do you pronounce it?
Othrusk.
Thrust.
That's how I pronounce it. Go on.
Yeah.
We're all looking at you.
What is it? Because
Ochrois, because it's spelled.
Ochrois, because-
it's a flora and fauna. They do a 10-year-old.
They do a
One
Gordon
of these big
MacPhail.
ugly Diageo distilleries. They've been bottled by Gordon MacPhail many times. Bottled very regularly, independently bottled, as many of the flora and fauna range are. But yeah, Othrusk, as far as I'm aware, is Ford of the Red Stream in Gaelic, and you just know.
I didn't even know For the Red Scream in English, so
There you go.
yeah, we'll say Gaelic. Yeah,
Yeah,
cool.
definitely Gaelic. Gaelic confirmed, certified by the only Gaelic person that I know.
but what
A Gaelic
so
person.
it's right.
There you go.
Head of Gaelic. Gaelic
Gaelic.
specialist.
Head of Gaelic.
Whiskey and Gaelic
So that's our
specialist.
first jam, and it's an absolute pup. And then
What's the kind of cask? You've got any cask?
it's a sweet French. I don't remember the wine type. It's similar to like a Sauterne or Pinot de Chiron.
Because that's
it's a sweet dessert wine. from
That's the thing
France.
about Pintail. I'll quickly run through because I've got the lineup that we've got for the tasting.
that's exciting.
Should we do our drams first, and you tell us the
Well,
lineup?
no, whilst you've just done
Okay.
that Pintail, I'll quickly go through
Yeah.
that. So we've got the Inchgower 2008, right? But that 16-year-old's finished in a Banyuls cask.
Good.
No idea what a Banyuls is or do you know what that is?
Yes.
Right?
Sweet wine again, fortified wine. There's a boon of having in Banyuls, which was very, very good.
Well done. We've got a Linkwood 2008, 14-year-old, finished in Lupac wine barrel.
Sweet wine.
There we go. Sweet wine. Tillybarton 2014, 10-year-old, finished in a Calvados barrel.
Apple brandy.
We've got a Talyuan
Could say it's a sweet wine.
Talyuan 14-year-old, finished in a Palo Cortado sherry barrel.
That's a sherry.
And we've got a Lafroig 16-year-old, finished in an Oloroso sherry.
Yummy, yummy, yum,
I
yum.
am really looking
Yummy
forward
whiskey.
So there you go. So that's your
Yummy
five.
whiskey.
That is your five drams there by Pintail. So
that is a
if there
lineup.
are tickets still available as this podcast going out, then snap them up at the Bullfinch down in Salamander.
Salamander Street.
How do you get down there, Angus?
Well, actually, interesting enough.
Hold the mic close to your mouth for us so we can
Sorry,
hear you.
Graham. Sorry.
Yeah.
Graham. Yeah, you just walk down Leith Walking and you just keep on walking.
There you go.
You go right down to the shore.
Stop when you get to the sea, is that right?
Stop when you get to the sea. It's opposite a scrapyard.
Highly recommend
or
that.
I don't know if the scrapyard still works. So if you've got any copper, to
I
sell,
believe the scrapyard is still
There
going.
you go.
But you can get the tram.
There you go.
There you get the tram.
Get the
right,
tram, you're gonna get most of
There you
it.
go. Right, Ross.
My
What's your
second dram is a Glengeary by Adelphi.
Shout out to David Lyons.
Shout out to David Lyons.
Loves his
Podcast.
Glengeary.
This is the problem. We're getting too many podcast listeners.
I
It's
know.
hardcore because I'm not one to I'm not one to kink shame, as mentioned before.
Uh-huh.
David Lyons loves a Glengeary.
He's in his geary, yeah.
He is a geary maniac.
Geary nights, I think he goes.
Wow. So this is an Adelphi Glengeary, which is an absolute belter. As Dom, like I said, actually got the full dram from it, so I hope there's a wee bit left for you, David, and if there isn't, I do apologise. And then I've got a third dram, which is a Highland Park Scottish ballet release, which you can see in a Snippet Sip It Score It coming soon.
And you're going to do that in a tutu.
A wee pirouette.
Yes.
That will be behind a paywall.
Right,
What have you got,
Angus,
Angus?
what did you have?
I've had Bonington
Muscat finish.
Yeah, Muscat finish.
Unpeated.
Shout out to Nicole Leslie.
The
Shout out
unpeated.
Nicole
It was-
Leslie.
It was
Leslie.
very, very
The
nice.
goat.
Right.
I really enjoyed it.
Very
Yeah,
good.
Lovely, nice. Yeah,
We should
great.
definitely get the people from Bonington on
We
soon.
definitely,
100%, yeah.
definitely should.
Yeah.
I've got you've got Springbank 8-year-old local barley.
Local barley.
Local
Yeah.
barley, and I'm currently getting through that.
How
and
is
then
it?
It's amazing.
Very nice.
It's
Amazing.
really, really nice.
Yeah.
Amazing. I would say it was amazing.
Classic Springbank.
Classic Springbank.
They should have a
yeah.
Fife barley edition.
And then I've got Kilchoman 13-year-old.
Wow, the new one.
The second age statement from the distillery. So I'm really
Shout out to Ken.
I didn't know the first one, but I'm having the
Bonjour,
second one.
And I
Ken.
think
I'm
that
excited
I
about
think
it.
that one's got a little bit of Sauterne or something involved.
Oh, you might be right. I'm a big fan of Kilchoman, so I'm really looking forward to that.
Very good. I went for, as you said, the Springbank 8 local barley. I saw a Glenfiddich Johnny Walker Gold Reserve. I decided, let's have a shot on that.
Love
It was nice,
Gold label.
very nice,
Yeah,
easy
Gold
going.
Reserve, yeah.
And I've gone for the Ardbeg Eureka.
Eureka! New release from our big committee release.
Still pretending that I like the peated stuff. It's absolutely lovely. It's slightly different.
25 years of the Ardbeg committee.
Yeah.
And so this one is using kind of chocolate malt, heavily roasted barley.
Yes,
like
there is a slightly different sort
texture. There should be a.
Yeah.
That's what I always find of heavily roasted barley. You get a bit of a texture difference. Bourbon and sherry, heavily roasted barley, just like Glenmorangie Signet, effectively. This is slightly higher in strength as well. I thought it was really tasty. You can maybe taste.
of. Right, what I want to do, Angus, because last week
Yes.
we had a fantastic episode out last week with
Hazel's also not drinking. We're not just.
sorry,
Yeah.
Hazel, yeah.
I'm on to
You're
the
on-
lime.
For the audio listeners, we're not just ignoring Hazel.
You're on
Yeah.
high ball. We had Ian Forteeth
We did.
and Cameron McPherson on last week.
We can now talk about it.
We can. Aye. One thing that was fascinating, and this is something that I want to try on this podcast and get better at, and I want the
Yeah.
people who listen to this
I
podcast,
need to get a lot better.
and we want to try the drilling down technique.
Yes.
So when we spoke to Ian Forteeth and we said like tasting whiskey and smelling it and this, that, and the next thing, how do you do it? Because I have openly said on the podcast, and I've got better as the year's gone on, but I am terrible at tasting notes. Right, I'm terrible at being able to identify flavour. So quite often, and I think there's a lot of people out there who.
I'm exactly the same as you.
Well, it
Graham.
puts you off
I'm-
going to whiskey tastings because if people are sitting there and what you get is you swirl the glass. Now, I will not discriminate, and I would say that there are certain elements of the tasting process where you can swirl the glass and you can see the texture of the liquid, you can see the colour of the liquid, hold it to a 45-degree angle.
I use it for alcohol percent.
Correct.
I'm trying something blind. I'll swirl it in the glass just to see. I can see the beads there.
Yep.
Shows me I've got something that's cash.
Correct, and I think we've not really ever spoken about the actual how to taste whiskey method. However, what I would say is there are so many people who would go, the pretentiousness of somebody sitting with a glass at 45 degrees, swirling it around, maybe they're putting their pinky up, nosing it, and then going, I'm getting shades of this, I'm getting shades of that.
Yeah.
Now, ultimately, that puts me off, actually, perfectly honest, like of that side of things.
You don't like Charles Kerr's wanky tasting notes.
I love Charles Kerr's wanky taste notes. The reason I called them wanky taste notes is probably because there's a deep down jealousy that he can actually be able to identify a smell, a
Yeah.
taste, a
That's
flavour,
fair. That's
and
fair.
go
It's the
and instantly go
association
with
that you can do. I mean,
I can't do it.
Oh, I'm very good at. I can know what I can taste. I can say that whiskey tastes a lot different to that whiskey.
Yes.
But why? I have no idea.
So let's try it. So
God.
Ian Forteeth talked about the drilling down method.
Yeah.
Okay.
And what you basically have to do is just identify the first thing you can identify. So basically, he was saying that. No, so instead of saying I'm getting citrus fruit, can you smell fruit? If you can smell fruit, fine. Drill it down. What kind of fruit can you smell? I can smell citrus fruit. There you go. Can you identify what citrus fruit you can get out of that? If not, that's how far you've drilled down. If you can, so that's this is the actual
Yeah.
method
And
that
I think-
somebody who is a master blender will use when it comes to smelling and identifying and tasting whiskey.
I think one of the reasons you're at a disadvantage, and it's not your own fault, getting into whiskey. I've always spoken about it. I can't do a beer. Can't do a beer at all. If I'm drinking anything, I'm drinking whiskey or I'm drinking wine.
Yeah.
And I approach red wine exactly the same as how I approach whiskey.
Yeah. Just guzzle it down.
Listen, I'm not. It's all wet.
And that probably, I mean, that is because I mean, I don't know about Graham, but I'm just not really a wine drinker at all.
No, neither am I.
I'll have a glass with a meal, but that's about it.
But what was the Cameron? What was?
I would say that Angus, see when you drink peated whiskey,
Yes.
we all drink the same peated whiskey. I would say that your nose is better than my nose on peated whiskey because you can get beyond the peat.
Yes, that's true.
I have this kind of
Yeah.
immaturity with peated whiskey because I probably had, what we're going to say, like 3,000 drams, and a very small proportion of them have been peated.
How much do you think your liver's worth?
Gutted. It's worth nothing. It's knackered. We're here for a good time, not a long time.
But
Don't
drink
listen to this
responsibly.
podcast. The mass is terrible, but it's not just sampling anyway.
Yeah.
So when you drink peated whiskey, for me, if it's heavily peated like that Ardbeg, I thought the Ardbeg was interesting because I liked the texture of it, and it tasted like Ardbeg to me. But I'm not going to pretend that I could get beyond the peat in the palate.
Right.
I'm the
okay.
same. I'm like, wow, smoke.
Yeah.
Or
See,
very peaty.
see, the reason
That is
I
interesting
really
because
tried.
I probably,
You-
I reckon I could get beyond
Yeah.
the peat
I
and the
think your
smoke
nose always, when you
with
speak,
things because
yeah, even off the pod, after the pod, how was your whiskey? You'll say, really good, I got this. And it's not anything to do with the peat or smoke of the whiskey. You've gone beyond it. Whereas, probably like Charles Kerr, I love stuff that's plain bourbon, distillery character, and then trying to pick out what's interesting
Yeah.
in that.
Yep.
But so I mean, I have made a conscious effort over the last week since
Yeah.
that podcast episode to really try and drill down on the drams that you're having, so you can try and find that and identify it, and then. But because I'm good at, if someone says to me, "You'll get this note," I'll find it.
Yeah.
But
well, this is it. I
And the
also
last
find, and I think it's a kind of proven science thing, is that
Drinking with people.
it's taste is very suggestive as well.
Correct. And that's
if
what
I
I'm worried
say
about.
to you, you'll get peaches. You probably will taste
Yeah.
peaches.
Yeah.
But not because it's there, just because I've said peaches.
well, this is the problem. Is that's why I want to be able to do it myself, and also be able to come up with my own wanky tasting notes,
Yeah.
so that I can say actually, and that's the difference. But I remember the last time we were in this room, Cameron he did his second round of 3 drams, but he did them from the book that he'd written, which is a Balmoral Guide to Scotch Whisky, Scotch. And Glenfiddich 12 was his number 3 dram, and he said Glenfiddich 12 was his number 3 dram because it was the first time he was able to get
Pear drops.
like for like
Wasn't it?
the tasting notes that
He'd then seen on the bottle.
yeah, he'd then seen that given on the
He
bottle.
was like, oh my goodness, I've done something there.
Yeah.
Like for me, I'll give you a wanky tasting note. I'm ready for it.
Well, no,
I'm thinking of varieties.
don't do it. Well, give us one, but also what I want you to do,
Is break it down.
no, just drill it down.
Okay,
How far can you drill down on the whiskey that you're doing?
sugar,
Okay,
powdered sugar,
right.
refreshers,
There you go.
pink refreshers.
Pink refreshers.
On a Tuesday, or whatever you need to be. You can go as wanky as you want, but definitely, for me it was like, oh, this just reminds me of refreshers, but that's powdered sugar, it's sweetness, it's sugar, and it's coming from a sweet wine cask. What are you drinking though?
No idea.
You much harder.
Really good whiskey, yeah.
Because you also Ardbeg and particularly you've got a
I'm
local,
damaging-
local Valley Springbank, famously funky, complex.
Well,
drams.
it's the Springbank here, and this is the problem. Is I've listened to too many people talking about what you get when you drink Springbanks.
Dirty and
So, but it's also
farms.
actually it's Pete from Woven there. He did a video with you for that app you work for, and you opened a Springbank.
1919, 50-year-olds, yeah.
Really tough gig that you've got working for that app.
Largest whiskey YouTube channel in the world. as
You're
well.
not allowed to talk
That's
about
what I said.
it. but there's a sort of distinctive, is it sherbet that you sometimes get?
He said sherbet.
Yeah,
Yeah, well, I got
and
really into
as
it.
soon as-
Him and Charlie MacLeod.
That's all I get when I drink Springbank now, and it annoys me because I get it and I'm like, I totally get that and I love it. But at the same time, it annoys me because I'm like, get your own tasting
It's
notes,
funny.
Graham.
I think my nose is better than my palate, but I trust my palate more than I trust my nose. 'Cause if I taste it, I'll make my mind up no matter what anybody else is
There you
saying. But your nose will wonder.
Yeah.
Whenever I drink Springbank, I do think it tastes farmyardy.
Yeah, there's
which
a
is
bit of
kind
farm.
of a way of saying taste a bit like shit.
Aye.
And that's all right.
But also, then it's how do you know what far, like, because this is what Ian, and if you do get a chance to listen to that episode, you haven't already, I would really recommend
Can't
it
wait to
because
listen to it. Not out yet as we're recording.
Ian Forteeth,
Yeah, amazing.
he talked a lot about how the association with the taste of something, but the way your brain works is you can associate it with a feeling or a sensation or a memory.
Yeah.
Now, you're saying tastes like a farmyard. Is that because you can't remember.
Well, I've never worked on a farm.
But you've never tasted a farm.
Yeah.
But what it might take you back to is a day that you were
past a
on a
farm.
farm or
Well,
driving past a
I
farm.
will tell you because I mean it's kind of quite. I don't know again if I've been influenced by just hearing farmyard, but I tried that.
Who are?
I tried that Killoman.
Have you tried the beef?
I tried the Killoman and I was immediately thinking, right, Graham's going to ask me something here, so I better have an answer. And I was thinking, if it takes me back, I was thinking it does taste farmyardy, but what does farmyardy taste?
They'll drop down.
And to me, I thought it tastes almost like kind of hay.
Right, there you go.
Like hay. You know, you get like dry hay on a September.
Whoa, I never get wanky.
On a September afternoon.
Yes, Angus.
On Charles
And I was
Kerr's
thinking,
farm.
no, not Charles Kerr's farm. I'm thinking back to my days growing up in Moncrief Sterling in Harrington, and you're playing on the hay bales, you're jumping from hay bale to hay bale. It just that sort of real haze. I'm getting that.
Brilliant.
That's bringing me back.
There you go.
A fantastic reference. I actually have to just say it to qualify it because people that don't know, if you're not listening to the Kilhoman episode, Angus asked the Kilhoman sales rep, "Have you tried the beef that's growing up?"
Yeah, I did.
It's on the estate in Kilhoman, and I've just lost it for the last 90 seconds.
Let's not ruin the reference. Let's not ruin the reference.
No, I won't.
Listen to the podcast.
Listen to the Kilhoman
But what I have to
podcast.
say as well is, Angus has drilled it down. He's found the hay. Fantastic. Brilliant. I will say, we're going to do some whiskey news. All right.
Dun, 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 dun.
Oh wait, 1 second, Hazel.
Yes.
You've always worked in selling whiskey to people. Now that you're with a flavour-led brand, do you lean into that? Are you trying to? Are you trying to suggest a little bit more than you would have with previous roles?
I
You should
am-
get this or that, or I get this and that.
Trying to be way more nasal Hazel than I've ever been before and getting
Oh,
right into nosing my whiskies.
There we go.
That is brilliant.
Nasal
And so-
Hazel. That's the name of the podcast.
Nasal Hazel is now
That's
the name
it,
of the
yeah.
podcast.
But I feel I was the same. Like, see, for the longest time, and I was working with whiskey, and I've been working with whiskey since I was 21, and I could just never get the tasting notes
Yeah.
that people were saying, and I was like, maybe this just isn't for me.
Yeah.
But I feel like when I'm having drams and stuff, it's when I have them again, and whether it's in a couple of weeks' time or even if it's the night after, that's when I then start to get tasting notes.
Yeah.
And then it's kind of that thing though. Then I link it back to when I was having that dram at the time, and then kind of surround myself with that. But getting to work with people like Pete and then Laura, who's our brand ambassador, the tasting notes that they can come up with are unreal.
Yeah.
And so off the cusp as well, like right up to nose. And okay, I'm getting this, this, and this, and I'm like, how?
Well, the thing is, with blending as well, you have to be able to do that because you
Exactly.
have to know, right, we've got this so far, now we need to add something that gives us the bit that's missing, or maybe you don't know what you're going to add until you've added it, but going, yeah, less of that or more of that, and that'll be absolutely spot on. But it leads us on to a nice thing because this 70cl bottle that you have brought in.
I have.
Now, talk us through this. This is the Woven Makers Project Coffee, W times C. So this is our collaboration bottling.
It is. So it's our WXC spirit drink. We can't call it whiskey because it's got coffee in it. So we teamed up with Assembly Roasters down in London to make something, again, a little bit different, a little bit experimental. We kind of want to relate whiskey to how...
Can we try something?
Yeah, of course.
We
happy
try.
to. To how the coffee community is and how I've noticed coffee is going lately. Like a lot of people getting very particular about their beans and
I'm really
their grinds.
interested in the origin,
Yeah.
etc. Yeah.
You're seeing so many, independent coffee places opening, especially in Edinburgh as well. So we want to kind of link those two communities together. So we came up with this WXE. So Pete went down, saw the roasters down, and it sounds really bad being a Scottish person, but like, went down and saw these roasters.
There's a few roasters down there.
But he went down to London to see the professional roasters down at Assembly, and they collaborated together to make the perfect whiskey that would go with this coffee that they were making. So it is more or less a 50-50 split of coffee and
Now,
whiskey.
talk me through the coffee situation here. Will this have caffeine in it?
Yes.
Am
Right.
I going to be up all night now?
Yes.
Oh well.
Your current wife's going to be delighted.
Just like you've got a 6-month-old, you can now just do the night.
I know,
It's
well,
perfect.
basically,
It
aye.
smells
Yeah.
incredible.
So there's an element of so we can't call this whiskey effectively, but
Exactly. So that's why it's got spirit drink on the label of it.
But
so
it is bottled at 44.5%.
It is.
So what we've
And
got here. So what's the whiskey that's in this?
So it's a blend that Pete has done. If you scan the QR codes again on the back, you'll be able to get the you'll be able to get the breakdown on it there.
Well,
so
give us a
just
scan so we
underneath
can
there.
get some of that.
It's also got a little bit of Demerara sugar in it as well, just to bring up that sweetness. And we did.
Milk and tea sugar.
Yeah, it is lovely in a White Russian. Speaking of milk, if you want to add
well,
to
the thing
that,
is as well, would this
really
Now
good.
you're now I'm
Would
a
this
sucker
be- would
for
this-
White Russian. You're
Yeah.
talking my language.
Would this not go quite well in like a I'm thinking if you stuck a bit of Bailey's in this, stuck this in with a bit of Bailey's.
Ah, it's on the same theme.
Is that White Russian, is it?
Well, I mean,
So-
cream.
Yeah.
Milk, yeah.
That's just for me. I like a whiskey espresso martini.
Yeah.
Yes.
Same.
It's just going to enhance my espresso martini.
Yeah, because I'm drilling down here. I'm getting some coffee and I'm getting some some brown sugar.
Well, that's it,
A
yeah.
little bit of whiskey in there as well.
Yeah,
done.
whiskey. I'm getting whiskey, some coffee, and some Demerara sugar.
Do you know what? You've absolutely nailed that, Graham. Well done.
Just as the bottle says. Oh my god.
I've done it.
But we
That's
launched
delicious.
this just before Christmas, which was kind of the perfect season to do it because a lot of people are doing quite boozy cooking and baking, and you wanted to impress folk that you're
Banana
doing
bread.
for. Yeah.
Oh, a bit of that and a bit of banana bread.
Well, I mean, you can do lots with this. Cocktails, baking, cooking,
Drinking.
It's perfectly nice, straight.
And again, it's going to that person that thinks that they don't like whiskey to be like, hey, what if you try adding a little bit of coffee and sugar to it? And most people would be like, what the hell are you doing
Yeah.
to the jam? And you're like, no, trust me, this tastes really yummy and just genuinely delicious.
And that must
Nice signals, no working.
That
out
must be
here,
really,
so-
really, like, as I say, like, it's breaking
delicious,
that wall
by the way.
down where you're trying to find, like, see for me, we were talking earlier on about buying a bottle of whiskey for somebody, and maybe not this particular one for the starting point, but definitely we've got this one here, this is your homemade,
Yeah.
the Manuka one I really, really liked, and I've had a few of the Wovens and I really like them because they taste very, very good.
Yeah.
And I would love, there's a few folk I know now, and we get this a lot, Angus, you and I, we've talked about this a few times, where people go, oh, you do that whiskey podcast thing, especially over Christmas, like, oh, I'm needing to buy my brother-in-law a nice whiskey, what do you think I should buy them? Or,
Yeah.
Managed to sell a bottle of Annandale to somebody.
and there you go.
There you go.
But it's interesting. We get people asking questions now like that. But I know a few people I would love to like buy that for and give them blind first.
Yeah.
Knowing
Hazel, I'm going to pour myself more of this.
Absolutely,
Very
go for
good.
it. It's
like
very good.
pouring a Woven blind because two or three reasons. Number one, by the way, see what you're drinking there, that's a blend.
Yeah.
So straight away you'll get people going, what? Blends are crap, blends aren't this, blends are cheap, blends are nasty, and all this kind of stuff. Secondly, by the way, majority of that's made up of non-Scotch whiskey.
Yeah.
It's mixed with something from New Zealand that was matured in Manuka wood, smoked Manuka wood, that's been mixed with a grain whiskey.
Yeah.
And you'll get somebody that go, really? Like someone will literally be like, what? No way, there's no way that can be
Yeah.
like that, because my perception of grain whiskey is that it's cheap, nasty rubbish, and my perception of blends is that it's
100%.
it's no good.
Yeah.
But that's why it is a great product just to give to people who are enthusiasts, but also people who maybe take whiskey a little bit too seriously.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
And go,
See, telling my dad that I was moving from William Grant to Woburn and he was no longer getting my staff allowance of Glenfiddich and Balvenie, I thought I was going to have to leave the island. I thought
your
I
staff
could
allowance.
never.
You're the best daughter ever.
Oh,
like,
anytime
oh,
those staff
whiskey
sales
galore.
came up, you bet that man was banking all the Caribbean cask he possibly could. So when I said, hey dad, I'm moving jobs and I'm going to a blend, his head was in his hands. But again, when he came over, like when he came down to Edinburgh and I gave him a dram of it, he
Yeah.
was like, oh, this is really, really good. I'm like, this is the blend that I'm
Yeah.
selling. And then it was that instant switch. To be like,
Massive.
oh, maybe I should.
Because that's the thing, is you look at these bottles, nothing that Woven do, and this is where it's really, really nice with the side, the nod back to heritage as well, is Woven are taking something that is probably the biggest part of whiskey heritage, which is blending whiskey together and making it completely unconventional, and nothing you look at from this bottle would suggest that this is a whiskey.
Yeah.
Right? It's a small bottle, it's a darker brown colour, it's a screw top, they're not the right shape for a whiskey bottle in most people's eyes.
Yeah.
But that's a great way to stand out. But as I say, getting that in, like, we're going to use the phrase that was originally coined by Cody Reynolds. He's getting too many mentions on this podcast today. But liquid to lips, right?
Yes.
Getting the liquid to lips, and I
That
think
is
that's.
a commercial person's dream.
I
That's what we say all the time.
That's what you've got. That's what you've got to do. Is you've
Yeah.
got to get this in front of people, so because there'll be so many people go, whiskey mixed with coffee. You can't be tell me that.
So they're like, £40 for a blend, no, I can't be paying that. And then as soon as they taste it, they're like, actually, this is
Yeah,
really
very, very good.
stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, this is £40 a bottle. I'm going to have a bottle of that in my house next week.
There you go.
Unbelievable.
That's just to
40
get you started on the day.
44.5%, and I've got the QR code going, and so it's telling me that there's under 1,500 bottles produced. Woven proprietary blend, about 70%, and then 30% assembly origin coffee. Gives me the brand name from Colombia.
Colombia. There you go.
News to me.
Good stuff there, the Colombian coffee.
0.7% demerara sugar. Graham, can't believe you picked that up.
I know, I was
Drilling down,
I've got a really sweet tooth.
That caramel.
That's a drilling. That's a drilling that we managed to do.
Yeah, and I think what's so cool about Woven is, you know, we've spoken about indie bottlers, and there's many of them there are, and great things they're doing. And I think there's, you know, the trend in whiskey has always been single casks, single cask strength, and many of these independent bottlers have released blends, but they're a side project really to what they're doing in the single cask bottling arena. But what Woven have done is they've said, no, we're going to start a company, a whiskey company, and it's going to be blends.
Well, I think
it's going to be blending, and it's going to be cool, new, different.
The experiences, the
Well,
way
I think
the
Pete,
marketing.
you know,
I think Pete doesn't. I don't know if he got annoyed at me, but he was very quick
Probably.
to point out, possibly, but he's very quick to point out. Like I asked, like straight up, like, are you an indie bottler? I'm like, no, we're not an indie bottler. We're a blender.
Yeah.
We're a blender, but we're a blender that have massive ambition, right, and also a blender that knows where their place is in the industry at that point.
Yeah.
We're entering I mean, how long have people in Scotland been? How long have people in Leith, people in Scotland been blending whiskey for?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Right, and what Woven? How long's Woven been actually going for? So they're very early in the stages, but early in the stages with massive ambition, and without tying themselves into any particular area other than just we are blenders,
And
making yummy whiskey.
blenders have always been a thing. It's only nowadays that we look at Grouse, Bell's, White Mackay, and the blenders also own a multitude of distilleries.
Yeah.
That is fortunate for them, but the reality is, blenders. Johnny Walker had a grocer's,
Yeah.
and he used to put people's whiskey into and gave it to his punters. He was a blender.
Yeah.
I feel the want to say a Woven independent blenders. No, they're just blenders.
Just blenders.
But because you look at the brands nowadays that are so prevalent, brands that we see every single day, brands that we've known since we've been seeing family members drink whiskey.
Yeah.
They are part of companies that own distilleries and they have their own liquid, etc. The challenge for Woven is to keep it exciting, and then that's why they've done the global thing, reaching all corners. There's no limits because they don't have they're not White Mackay. You don't have to have X amount of Tamaravillan go into your stock every year. X amount of it, you know. Woven with the experiences, are the experiences going to continue? What's the plan with that?
Oh, so when you talk about experience, what you talk about is that?
So basically,
That's our releases.
You have,
Our releases,
you have three
experiences.
core range products, right?
Yeah.
Which are now available in 70cl.
Yep.
And then these experiences are batch releases, right?
Yeah, they're essentially our limited editions, but when Pete is making his experiences, it says, it's exactly as it says, basically, like he links everything to an experience as he's making it. So we recently, last year, we released Friends in the North, which was an experience that we brought out where Pete and Nick went on this big Scandi trip, and they went to 4 different distilleries across there to blend this whiskey, and sort of bring this story to people as well, to be like, it doesn't always have to be, like we touched on at the very beginning of the episode, it doesn't always have to be Scottish whiskey for it to be good. And that's one thing that Woven are really trying to push out there as well, which I really admire. Like, we can take, you know, you can have a Scotch base in North British, but then you can, you know, get the whiskey from Scandi.
They always use Scotch.
Yeah.
So there'll always be an element of Scotch in there.
Yeah.
Whether it's...
But it doesn't have to be 100% Scottish
of
for it
course.
to be
Yeah.
delicious and successful and for it to sell. So we had Friends in the North, we've got WXA, and we're looking to bring out another couple this year as well. And then the ones that you're seeing in the 50cl, so the kaleidoscopic one, you showed me a photo of, and the Joy in Nature stuff, they are our limited batches in that. We probably won't make more of those.
Yeah.
And so see with them, they're mostly being sold directly on the website to customers who are repeat customers, or are you honing back a proportion of them to put them into on trade?
With those ones, they'll probably be more for
collectors as well. People are collecting Woven.
The thing is, we're trying to invite people into like what we call our fold, like trying to invite them into our community. So we host these things as we call our open studio. We had one for that app.
Yeah, for Thrice. Yeah. So,
Oh yeah.
So it's essentially a big get together where there's pizzas, beers. You can try essentially any of the Woven SKUs
do
that
it
you
every
want.
single month?
We used to do it every month. We've kind of scaled back on it a little bit because we want to start taking it on the road.
Okay.
So across Glasgow, Aberdeen, but it's just a chance to get people in that area, in that community, to come and try Woven. And it's not a sit down and we'll talk to you about whiskey for 3 hours. It's a come along,
Have a
try
good time.
it, but we'll be sort of milling around.
I bet
and if
there's
you want
people-
to speak to us about it, then cool, come along and speak to us.
Hazel, I bet there's people listening right now who, living in Edinburgh, have tried Woven in bars and didn't know about the open studio.
Yeah.
I didn't know about the open
So you
studio.
need to have a look on the
We need to go
socials.
down.
Yeah.
But it's absolutely brilliant.
Yeah.
We'll come down. If you've got another experience coming out or something, we'll come down and talk about it a little bit. It'd be
I'll let
good.
you know when the next one is. But
Yeah.
that's the thing, it's super relaxed. Come down, have a beer, have a slice of pizza, just have a chat with your mates, bring...
You had me a pizza.
Yeah, sold.
There we go. I mean, if you put on a pub quiz where there's £80
Oh.
per grams, I guess I'll be there.
Maximum 3 teams.
That,
So it brings us on to that point in the evening, doesn't it? Or have we
it
got-
certainly does.
Yeah.
I mean, Hazel, it's I'm going to actually try this Woven as well as the coffee one. So this is the homemade. But what we are going to ask you
Ken brought
is,
down, good point.
we're going to ask you get another 3 grams if you're very interested.
Which I thought was controversial because I thought we only gave her 1 extra, but there you go. These are more charitable than I am.
You're allowed 1 on brand.
Were you
is what I
prepped to have 3 more stories?
I was not, but
good.
we go off the cuff, we can riff.
We're gonna have this.
You're a whiskey personality. You'll feel
Exactly, that's it. My job is yapping, so...
So you're like 1 on brand. Although what we'll say is we offered that to Pete, and Pete said, "I'm not putting." He actually did. He actually was like, no. He said, "In the future, absolutely." But he's like,
Aye.
you're like
It's
1
like
on
the
brand.
commercials,
Exactly.
so to sell it, I'm going to go...
What is that? That's a good point.
Favourite Woven has to be homemade.
Yeah.
It's just like a lovely wee homage to Leith, and it's really good with the appetizer. And I think it was Pete himself that had it with. I can't remember.
Is that the key to winning the highball challenge? Woven, homemade, and appetizer.
If you see me come into your bar, give me it with appetizer, and I will
Really?
score you 100 out of 10 on the experience.
experience.
Well done, you're going to Japan.
Woven will not give you 100 out of 10. That is officially
By the way,
not the score. Nick Ravenhall
no.
says.
We are not doing that. Again, T's and C's won't be happening. But no,
but
homemade
appetizer is a really
and
good recommendation.
appetize, and then Pete was calling it, I think it was like homemade apple pie. What was the name of his highball that
Nice,
he made with it? So
nice.
that's very nice. We've touched on Bonington earlier, but their PX Sherry is in one of my top ones at the minute. Of course, Nicole Leslie, myself and herself go. Nicole does work for Bonington. We enjoyed a few jams with that on a Friday evening in the Bowler's Rest.
First time you tried it, was it?
First time I tried it. And it was also one of my first times in the Bowler's Rest. And can I just say, what a pub it is?
There you go.
Bowler's Rest,
Bowler's, I
lovely.
never had.
Wonderful.
No.
Where's that?
Down in Leith. Down... Leith.
Down in Leith.
How is it?
In the
How is the
area.
whiskey?
It's delicious. It is everything you would want in a sherry bomb whiskey and more. I am a bit of a sherry tart, as you were saying to Graham earlier.
You can say that, but we definitely couldn't say that.
No,
That's true. That's true.
but just love all things sherry. But I think I touched on it actually on my episode that I did beforehand. One of the first times that I was out for a dram in Edinburgh was with your good selves. I was in the Balmoral. I was at Scotch, and Cam asked me. My first time meeting Cam asked me what kind of whiskey I'd like, and I was like, anything like really heavily sherry. He was like, cool, everything I hate in a dram and
Yeah.
more. And I was like, wow, I've really made a
Cam
word.
rolling
Like,
his
I've really
eyes.
made myself in the whiskey industry that Cam hates me and everything I stand for in the whiskey world. But obviously not. We're very dear good friends now. But yeah, just everything you'd want from everything you think a sherry bomb is what
Yeah.
it is.
Which is great for me.
We've not really talked about Bonington a lot. But
We're gonna have somebody on
we're
from
gonna,
Bonington.
we're gonna talk about Bonington.
Yeah, Holyrood and
Nicole, she's gonna have to come on.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Nicole, if you're watching this, sorry, but
Sorry.
you're going to have to come on.
Yeah. Sorry, pal.
Yeah.
we'll bring you down into the cellar. it's a lot nicer.
How,
Isn't it?
how can you say no? How can you say no? No, but that would be great. Yeah.
Yeah.
Good dram. First mention of Bonington at the end of these.
Yeah, will do. I will be. Aye.
And first mention of Woven, I guess. Or are you not? Are you wanting 2 more? Did you put homemade in one of your what 3s there?
I've got homemade, I've got Bonington.
Okay,
and the other one I was going to say, which
That's
again,
first
controversial,
mention.
and you might not let it happen, but Balvenie 14 Caribbean cask.
That's a popular one.
Very popular.
It's like an X. Like, I just,
Can't let go.
can't let go.
Still stocking Willie G's in the house, are you?
I am.
Yeah.
I've got a fair whack of Balvenie Caribbean cask.
And what's your story with Balvenie Caribbean cask? It's just been your friend for a long time.
It's just been one of the ones that I've always really enjoyed.
Yeah.
I feel like in my whiskey journey, a lot of the time when I was trying single malts, I had to go back to them quite a lot to, get those tasting notes we
Yeah.
were talking about earlier, make those memories and stories about it. Whereas with Caribbean cask, from the minute I tried it, I was like, oh, I see what the hype is. I see why everyone was at my throat when we were out of stock of it for 6 months or however long
Yeah.
it was. But yeah.
What did you blame it on? Glassware in France or something like that?
Glassware and then corks were breaking and then I can't remember what, I was just pulling excuses from everywhere because I was like, I don't want people to hate me because it's not my fault.
It's a great entry level dram.
Yeah.
But it's also a great dram that's just nice to go back to all the time.
Yeah.
It's a very good dram just to have.
It's also, Graham, we used to say in Scotch, see characters like yourself,
Yes.
people who are getting into whiskey.
Yeah.
The person who said, can I recommend you a whiskey, sir? No. I know my whiskey.
Aye.
9 times out of 10, order Caribbean cask.
Yeah.
That was like that.
It's
I know a wee
also-
bit of whiskey. I'm quite enjoying it. That's what
It
I'd go
takes
for.
two
Yeah.
very big boxes in the fact it's a very recognisable brand.
Yeah.
But also it's different.
Yeah.
So if you want to go that, so it's like that sort of like, I'll take the Balvenie, recognisable brand, but I'm going to take the Caribbean cask.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A little bit on the side there, something a bit
Yeah,
different.
to show I like to experiment, I like
Yeah.
I like my different cask finishes.
I have to admit, it's something I pretended to dislike, in a way, because Graham and
I know, I guess, yeah.
Now, this is where Graham and I know each other, and this is where now Graham and I, we can't really like the same thing. We have to be a wee bit contrarian.
Aye.
And Graham didn't like peated whiskies, until he started pretending to like it.
Aye.
But
Love it.
Graham really liked Caribbean cask.
Yeah.
And I remember, when we were just kind of getting into whiskey, Graham was like, "Oh, try this Caribbean cask: bananas, pineapple, tropical fruit."
Graham is the
And I was,
customer that we used to hate.
and I was very much when I was.
Got me a cask.
Shit.
Got a lorry up there,
Shit,
outside.
he'd come in and tell a 20-year-old bartender, I've got a cask of that.
Aye.
And then he'd say, actually, I don't use your recommendation, son.
Yeah.
Oh, a Caribbean
I'd
cask.
walk in and I'd be like, nah, send the tanker down. Yeah, just park it up around the back. Yeah, beep, beep. That's my tanker reversing into the flat, mate. Sorry, that was my tanker driver on the phone there.
But it was probably the dram that you gave to me, and I had to be like, nah, you know what?
Yeah.
Not sure I'm a huge fan of
Is
that.
that because you didn't like admitting that your best pal knew a wee bit about whiskey?
No,
Yeah, well, a
it's
bit
just-
of that,
he just
but-
likes. I think it's like that. I think it's like that. He's got a bit about him.
I'm a little bit
If,
like
if
that.
there's 5 years, 4 years like the drama,
Yeah.
Angus won't like
Yeah.
is that
I
kind
will,
of
but-
I like you. He doesn't like you.
fair. And I will say, since you've last been on, congratulations, Hazel
Yes.
MacLeod. You are engaged to be married
I am indeed. Just wed.
to the fantastic Stevie Aitken, distributor of whiskey, purveyor of rum,
Yep.
distributor of rum.
I tell you what, he's doing well. I've seen the diamond.
Oh
I've
my
seen-
goodness. Oh my goodness.
God almighty.
And
He's doing all right, eh? There's cash and rum.
it's the biggest rocks in Arthur's Seat.
The Rum Stories
Honestly,
podcast.
biggest rocks in Arthur's Seat in Edinburgh.
There you go.
Great scenes for Hazel
Oh my
MacLeod.
God.
But he's a whiskey fan too.
He is.
He's not getting on the podcast. He's a rum guy. If he's got a dram for you and Stevie, what would your dram
Well,
be?
Well, there'll be drams at the wedding, surely.
No, but what's your dram? You must have a dram.
Again, Caribbean cask.
yeah, well,
Is it?
it's a perfect marriage.
Weddings that we've been together at is our hip flask. It's our hip flask
Yeah.
jam. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
definitely have some of that on the big day.
Because I think that was your whiskey story. It was about the first time you met your dad, and you were talking about island measures.
Oh God, yeah.
Oh, aye.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, aye.
Yeah.
Your dad pouring island measures for him when he first
Yeah.
made a trip out to Harris to meet the folks.
Yeah.
And he's
Aye.
done so well. I've got to say, credit. I don't know why he's getting such a mention in the podcast, but he's just done so well. I'm so proud that he proposed on a beach in Harris.
Yeah.
Aye,
He
that's-
just done.
He did very well.
He done everything he
There you
should
go.
have done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
a textbook Islander proposal. It was perfect. Absolutely
Will you insert MacLeod? There's been a lot of MacLeods get engaged in that beach, but that's worked out very well.
They're all there with the cards afterwards. They've given him an 8. Fantastic.
Brilliant.
Well
Thanks for
done.
coming back on.
Oh, thank you so much for having me.
Thanks for being sober through this as well. I'm quite steaming, but please
What
podcast
are we calling this? Nazy Hazel.
Nazy drum.
Nazy Hazy.
Well, listen, thank you very much for listening to the Whisky Stories podcast. Thanks to everybody. Our trip to the Lady of the Glen is one of the most watched videos on our
And listen,
YouTube channel.
Visual. If you've never YouTubed this before, go.
I did when I was editing that and I listened back. You opening the bung. It's terrible listening.
I'm sure it
Great
is.
watching.
I'll say I spoke to a listener.
It's all action.
A Thursday listener of the podcast is Shan Buck, and she listens the day of release.
Right.
Yeah.
And I spoke to her. I always ask her, how was the pod? How did you think it was? She said, I should have watched it.
Yeah.
But I will now be posting a wee post on the Facebook page on the day of release or on the Friday, and I just ask people, how was it? What did you think? And I'm glad I posted the YouTube link this week, which has done better than YouTube than the other videos, getting a couple hundred listeners, viewers.
It's a real visual.
Because it was brilliant, and also we're going to have a lot of really, really exciting content that you need to be watching. I know we're not the best looking, but it'll be worth it. I guarantee it.
I have my merch on tonight.
Look at that. Actually, what did they just cover that diamond up just now so the glare off it's not going to cause the camera too much problems.
and so please join the Facebook group if you're not already part of it. Honestly, even if you think that sounds blah blah blah, it encourages you to have a wee dram on a Friday, meet people from all over the world.
Not just
now.
a Friday, Saturday. It was like Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
Weekend. Actually, we didn't see enough from Five Whisky Festival.
No, we didn't. But
we didn't see enough from Five Whisky Festival.
But there's just it's the community that we've built up. I mean, as I say, if you have a whiskey bar that you want to showcase, then look at the other guys that have done it. You know, look at Craig Darling's one, look at Scott Moore, look at Bob Cutting's. Fantastic. There's so many. There's so much interest.
Pass it on to everybody.
Keep it going.
We really appreciate your support. Hazy Drams, where do they find you?
Hazy Drams on Instagram.
Yeah.
And for Woven content, it's all socials,
on
Woven.
Socials on Instagram as well. I think it's Distill Lara is Lara, our brand ambassadors. Tagline as well on Instagram, so follow her there. And I recently got Wi-Fi connected to my flat. First thing I'm going to do is go into the Whisky Stories Facebook page and watch all these videos of these magnificent bars that people are showcasing.
I'll be honest with you, Hazel, we could do some diversity. So if you've got a home bar, we'd love to see a video of your home bar because you've done that to yourself now. Because Whisky Stories podcast listeners have an image right now that suits the hosts. To be honest with you. All the products that we've tried tonight, homemade. What are we calling this? This is
WXC.
Yeah, WXC spirit drink can be bought directly on the website.
We directly on the website, and you'll start to see them, if I'm doing my job well, popping up in more shops across Scotland.
I've got to say, WXC, I might even buy a bottle and put it into my bars that I go to regularly and say, I want this in my espresso martinis.
Yeah.
It's that tasty.
And for people who, for the bars that are taking part in this competition, right, if someone's sitting at home listening to this going, right, I want to try and find one of these bars so I can try one of these. How do we find out where the bars that are in the highball competition are?
If you follow us on our social, we're going to do what we call a bit of a highball safari. So we'll post like a little map of who's taking part across Glasgow and Edinburgh, and then you can go in and enjoy your fruity, bubbly goodness.
Because we've not went far, but if we do end up doing like a wee pod in Glasgow or something, I could easily see the Whisky Stories podcast doing a wee Whisky Stories pub crawl.
Oh,
aye.
Or a highball safari.
When it comes down to judging experience, we'd be glad to be hired by Woven to judge experience.
No, we're not into it. I'm sorry, but there's got to be a way.
We don't have a bag there.
No, we can't. We have.
The T's and C's are 10 bars that they've agreed to work with.
10. Can we not 10 bars and a podcast? There's got to be a way to do it.
It'll be fixed. Problem is, we've got such a big audience, it'd be totally fixed, and these bars would go bust, and we'd go
Speak to Ravenclaw, and he'll get us.
And it's a trip. Is there any whiskey experiences in Japan that the person who's going to get sent to Japan is going to enjoy?
I guess you didn't want to go, mate. It's been great.
You've done.
You've been to Japan twice in the last 2 months.
I know, right, anyway, we have to wrap this up because we need to get out of this.
Thank you for listening.
Thank you everyone for listening. Thanks for Hazel for coming along. Lovely to see you again. Thank you. And thanks very much for joining. Cheers, guys. All the best.
Cheers.